I see now that in order to survive, you have to have something that makes you thrive. And whenever you wake up and don't feel wanted or significant or even anything to be happy about, you just look for something to be happy, make you feel better and give you that endorphins and the feelings that you need that usually you would get from, other people.
Hello, sweet friends. I'm Stephanie Jacobs, a storyteller and advocate for social justice, and your host of the Love Light Stories podcast, a place where we uncover a deeper understanding of humanity through beautiful, redemptive stories that inspire our hearts. If you long to see more love, empathy, and true connection in our world and your own life, you're in the right place. After spending multiple years studying social justice issues, I've realized the power story has in helping us to understand, empathize, and transform our worldviews into something that's just that, views that are truly worldly. Here in this space, we'll embrace our humanity through raw and authentic stories told by real people themselves. We'll amplify their voices and learn to connect in more meaningful ways. Poverty, human trafficking, incarceration, race, immigration, and more. We'll embrace difficult conversations, sometimes controversial topics, and lighthearted stories too. If you wish to uncover the hope, love, empathy, and connection we can find in our fellow humanity, this is the show for you. So, are you ready, lovely? Let's jump in. Well, hello there, lovely. Welcome back to the Love Light Stories podcast, where we create space for real personal stories to be seen, heard, and understood. If you haven't yet, be sure to rate the show, follow, and share it with your family and friends. Today on the podcast, I'm welcoming Lori Ann McQuillen. Today's conversation is one of those real, raw, and vulnerable stories. In this episode, you'll hear Lori Ann's intimate story of lifelong substance abuse. Through her story, you'll come to better understand the bondage of addiction and how severely it can take hold of one's life to the point of almost losing it. You'll have the chance to rejoice with us as you learn how Lori Ann was able to finally break free and restore her life. I was introduced to Lori Ann through Pamela Hillman, who was a guest on episode number 9 called Abuse, Addiction, and Mentoring Inside Prisons with Life Changers Legacy. In that episode, Pamela shares her own story of abuse and addiction and how that led her to helping other women break free of bondage. As you'll learn in this conversation, Lori Ann is one of the women Pamela has personally mentored and walked alongside as she restored her life. As such, Pamela is joining us in this conversation too. This is a really neat, full circle story, and part of it involves their inspiring story of their own relationship going way back. I don't want to spoil it, but this is a special episode unlike any we've had before. If you haven't yet, make sure to go back and listen to episode number 9 to meet Pamela and hear her own story too. Now let's dive in. Lori Ann, I am so happy to have you on the Love Light Stories podcast today. Just getting to meet you before this and hearing your story it was really an inspiring and exciting moment for me because your story is really one of those stories that I envisioned having on this show when I first created it, because you have come out on the other side of such difficulty. And it's so inspiring to see your story. So I welcome you here on the Love Light Stories podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to share my story. I want it to be not, the things I've been through not be in vain. So this is what it was for, is to share.
Yes, wonderful. And we have Pamela Hillman here too, the founder of Life Changers Legacy, who actually was on our show a couple of episodes ago. Those listening got to hear Pamela's story, but we have her today because we'll get into it a little bit more. But Lori Ann, you told me that Pamela was really that support system for you as you were coming out of addiction and working to get your life back on track. So Pamela, I welcome you as well.
Thank you. It's so great to be back. Thank you, Stephanie. You are amazing and you bring so much comfort and you just pull out the stories so well. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. And Pamela said she's just going to sit in the background today and interject where Lori Ann would like, or if we want to add some extra color to the story a little bit. So, yes. So, Lori Ann, take us back to the moment where your story began in the rejection that you received from your dad and some of those core beliefs that it created inside of you.
I watched a thing one time preaching about that babies can feel rejection from the outside. I don't know, but I don't know. He apparently didn't want to have me, and my mom, of course, did. And then as I got older, he was I felt very rejected by him, and which caused rebellion. And then so I just feel very worthless, and the core belief, I guess, would be just unworthy, insignificant, inferior sort of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give us an example. I think you mentioned a turning point in the boat one day with your dad, like what he said and how it affected you.
Yes, when I was 15, we were out fishing, me and my brother and my dad, and he had told me that he was drinking, and he told me that if I was pretty now and I could go, and be a dancer or a stripper and make money, good money. So I was 15, and it just hurt my feelings because he was supposed to be my dad and protecting me from things like that and not wanting me to do things like that. And that really just kind of broke me and made things very worse. So
Yeah, it was like that thing where you expect your dad, the person who raises you, to be looking out for you, and instead he was suggesting something that even at that point, that young, you realized was not healthy.
yeah.
Okay. And then what did that lead to after you've gone through this with your dad and had this conversation in the boat and so much more that has happened over all of these years, right? Like ultimately, where did that lead you?
Well, I started drinking, stealing drinks from them, and drinking with my friends, skipping school, smoking pot, and running away, and sneaking out at nights, and all kinds of things. I just went just crazy. And then I ended up getting pregnant by the time I was 15.
Right. You can really see that slippery slope of that underlying trauma and feeling unworthy and uncared for by your father, if that would be the right word, like how that can lead to such rebellion and kind of this. I don't know if you would say it felt like kind of like you were in a season of being lost.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that I see now that in order to survive, you have to have something that makes you thrive. And whenever you wake up and don't feel wanted or um, significant or even anything to be happy about, you just look for something to be happy, make you feel better, and give you that endorphins and the feelings that you need that usually you would get from other people. But yeah, so
Right, for sure. You were definitely lacking that at a young age and growing up. And so you said that you had a teen pregnancy, and you also had told me your parents got divorced around that time frame as well. And then let's skip ahead, right? Tell us about your other children and that experience raising them.
okay, so I had 4 children by the time I was 24, and I loved them very much. They loved me, and I loved having them, and they were mine, and they were very special to me. But at the same time, I was very young. I was 24, having with 4 kids, and I really didn't have a clue what I was doing. And my oldest was 11, and then my other 3 were 5 and 6 and 7, and they got taken from me from DFACS 3 times because of drinking, and then getting in, just getting in trouble and not being a good, stable environment. And of course, looking back now, it's a good thing that they went where they went, because there's no telling how messed up they'd be, just that if I didn't know what I was doing. So, on the third time they were taken, they were telling me that they were going to separate them if I didn't sign them over to the foster care, and they were all together at the time. So I wanted them to at least be together, and plus I knew this woman, and I had, every time I got them back, they were with her, and then whenever I would get them back, we stayed in touch, like I trusted her and stuff, and she made it out to be like that I would be able to be in their lives still, but that didn't happen. But so whenever that happened, I lost it. I lost it for real, and just was devastated. And I don't know how much more of a loser you could feel whenever you have one job to be a good mama, and then you don't know how to fulfill that. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's how the devil gets us women, is he you take our children, you got us, so that's the way he knows that. So
right, you mentioned that you really lost it when your children were taken away by DFACS, and totally understandable. Can you just take us back to that moment and help us understand what it felt like to be you, and what was going through your mind and how you felt and all of that?
When they got taken the last time, oh man, it was devastating. I was just walking, it was just bad. It was miserable. I made everybody around me miserable, especially Earl here. Just I was hurting so bad, and everybody has that devastating thing, and that's what mine was. But whenever I did sign, I went to a rehab, and then whenever I did sign them over, I was in the rehab and I was clean. And God showed me all of the scriptures in the Bible about how that my children will be back. He pretty much just told me that, do what you have to do, and then you will have them back one day. They will come back to you.
Wow.
You will. And I knew that I've never, out of all the things I know in this world, I knew that my children were coming back. And yes, so far, 2 of them have. My oldest daughter, and then my other daughter. But what's a good praise report since last time is that my daughter went out to eat with my oldest son, and he's in the National Guard right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and so she talked to him and got to tell this side of the story, because I never got to tell my side, and they told him horrible things about the situation, me, instead of just, I don't know. But anyway, so he got to see that it's not all that, and plus he's more open minded now, and he's not just being mad at me. And
Right.
so she planted seeds, and so he's going to be next. I just know. And then I'll have one more. So they're all on their way.
Yeah. Isn't that beautiful that God gave you that reassurance? Yeah. Kind of like he was cradling you while you were longing to cradle your children, and that they would come back to you one day. And he's already began to fulfill that. And that's just beautiful. Oh, I didn't even know that. That is so wonderful.
Yes, it's happening quicker than what I thought. I thought my boys were going to take a while, but it's right around the corner.
Oh,
that's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm living in that miracle that he told me about now, or told me about 15, 20 years ago.
Yes. How beautiful. Wow. You mentioned you went to rehab. Can you just share what that experience was like? How long were you there?
I went to that rehab. It was called the Ruth House, and I was there for 9 months, and it was up on a hill in Rock. I forget. It's over there by Jasper, out in the middle of nowhere. And that we didn't have anything but our Bibles and each other, and in class, and God. So it was just amazing. I walked around. I read. I wouldn't let my mind think. I would have to be reading in the Word, no matter if I was doing something or whatever. I would be memorizing a word or something. But anyways, I ended up walking around with Jesus up there. It was amazing. That was unreal, and that was really neat. And that's whenever I signed the papers over for my children while I was there, and that was in 2008. And so that went really good. I thought that everything was going to be okay, but not even 6 months later, I was back out there again. So
Wow.
I was in college doing medical assisting classes, and then just one day on the way to class, I ended up over at the drug dude's house. So I just didn't have the support system and the I don't know. I guess my mind was renewed. I just didn't have the support system, I guess.
Right. And you mentioned to me too that it was a 9-month program, which seems like a long time, but for a lifetime of addiction, it maybe wasn't long
Yeah,
enough for it all to sink
sure.
in for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to have a mind change that's permanent, apparently,
Right.
or ongoing, even.
I think now would be a fun time to mention too the connection to Pamela and how you actually met her in prison at 17 years old and then again later. And it's just, I didn't know that. And now you're obviously very connected with Pamela. Can you just share like the first time you met Pamela in prison, like that experience and that connection and all of that?
Well, I was 17 and went to jail for the first time, and I remember seeing her in there, and she was just being Pamela in there, and I remember her. I don't know why God. I remember what she said and everything. It's just, it's really neat how He made me remember the things that with her, of all of the things I've forgotten in the world, throughout life. So, yeah, and then many years later, it was in 2010. I was in jail with her again, and we both were waiting to go to prison. And she went to prison before I did, and then I got to prison, and she was there. So, yeah, and then when she was there, she was writing the vision for this ministry. She sat up in her little bunk and just read and studied and helped other women that were struggling. Had a little class in there. I remember in jail she had a little what do you call it, exercise class that we would get up and do that with her. She's something else. So yeah, she was writing the vision for this program that I'm now in part of. That it's manifest. It's real. It's
Yeah, the
like,
connection back to that. And Pamela, my goodness, it's just so beautiful to hear Lori Ann talk about this in retrospect after we've heard you tell your story of your experience going through that and creating the program and everything. It's just really, really neat.
Yeah. So with me going to jail so many times, right, before I actually got sent to prison, and that's why they sent me to prison because I had, the same offense. It was always cocaine or crack, and I drank, but I never got in trouble for that. But so to run into her again, it was, I mean, you run into people, but you don't. This was totally divine. It
Mm.
truly was. I mean, and the way I was looking at it, when I would go to jail, I would always turn back to the Lord. I actually never turned away from the Lord when I was out using, because I was always talking to the Lord and begging Him to help me get out of this. I didn't want to be using. I just didn't know how to get free. That's the same thing with Lori Ann. She tells her story to me, and she would say the same thing. I didn't know how. Just like she said, she didn't know how to raise her children. She didn't have that example. She didn't have that undergirding support system. That is so critical in life. So when we meet again in prison and she gets in the class and just, I mean, for God to plant the seeds all those years before, okay, even inside me, somebody came along and planted seeds in me. Somebody else came along and watered those seeds along the way. Somebody came and put fertilizer on them, you know? So now God has blessed me to be able to grow with her. You know, I'm growing with her now. We grow together. We listen to the same things. You know, I'll send her something. She'll say, "Oh, this one's so good. This helped me so much." You know, I mean, that's what sisterhood is. That's what the body of Christ is. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Is uplifting one another and knowing that if they're in something, that we're in it too. You know,
Yeah.
if they're suffering, if they're hurt, if they have a loved one who's down, or they're just so stressed out about things, you know, we have to come alongside and be that Jesus,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, Lori Ann, I know you've said so many times how Pamela has been so instrumental in your support system and helping make this transition and changing your life, transforming your life for real this time, right? And we'll get into
Yeah.
that more. We'll totally get into that more, but it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking that whenever I would go to jail, I went to jail like every year of my life. For like 20 years, I would go every year because I wouldn't report for probation. It was like rollover minutes or something. But I would go, and then every time I went, I would go back, reading the word and all that. And just like she said, I have a whole journal of the last month that I was using, and that my daughter, and it was praying just to help me, help us, help her, help us, help us, help us. Help. It was just misery, and I have it over there every day. I would pray in there and write my prayers out, and it's just amazing right up to the day so that she went to jail, and then that's whenever I knew if I could just get her still, then it'd be all right. She would just get sober, then she would see that she remember her boys and need to get in and know that she need to. So, anyways.
And that gives us a little glimpse of the beauty and the light coming here at the end of this story. And before we get there, take us back to another turning point that you mentioned where you actually tried to commit suicide, and help us understand what it felt like for you and what you even experienced physically.
Um, yeah, well, I was using, and I don't know what happened. I guess I had ran out, and I was over at my dad's, and my dad,
Was a trigger.
he's yeah, he's a super triggered. So I don't remember what happened. It seemed like I was sick or something, and he wouldn't let me. And I was drinking though, and he wouldn't let me in. And uh, I don't know. I just remember that just like that, I took a handful of morphine and chased it down with a whole bunch of 100 proof vodka, and that was the last thing I remember until I woke up in the hospital. I mean, I didn't really just wake up. It was terrible. It was terrifying. But yeah, I woke up in the hospital. I had overdosed and had all my organs had shut down, and I was on life support for I don't even know. I guess a month. And I was hallucinating, and I thought that I kept seeing my family die in front of me, but it was very, very real, and it was just a very bad hallucinations of people in front of me. And so they had me tied down to the bed and everything, and I was getting dialysis, and I would just see things and hear things. It was just awful, and it was real. I don't know how that happens where you can actually see
Yeah,
something happen in front of you that absolutely isn't even happening. So, like,
right. What were you, if you want to share, like what were some
yeah.
of the things you were seeing?
Like, okay, the guy that I live with, Earl, he died 3 times in front of me. He had he was on the phone. My mom was on the phone with him, and he apparently had a heart attack on the side of the road. That was one.
Mm.
Another one was whenever I was getting the dialysis done, and I could see right in front of me, he was hanging upside down and getting squished out. I mean, it's
Oh,
terrifying. He was
oh.
getting squished it was really bad. And
Mm.
then my daughter, she was pregnant. I saw her get shot out in the parking lot. And then my dad in front of me, his hand got shot off, and just weird. It was just everybody kept dying in front of me. It was terrifying and terrible.
What about, I think you mentioned there were names ticking across the TV screen
Yeah,
even, right?
like how the news at the bottom it scrolls across there. I was seeing their names going by that they had that whatever just happened,
Yeah.
and everything. It's just
It was just terror.
It was terrifying. It was.
Yes.
It was very terrible. It was my reality. I could see these things happening. I've never even. My brother, my brother was there whenever I was going into a CT scan, and he was looking right at me, and I was talking to him, and it wasn't him. It was him though, but it wasn't. I guess it wasn't him. Why would that be him? He was the doctor guy. It was just, and then he went through the window with a baby on his back. It's just crazy stuff. It got really wild.
Lots
Really
of
wild.
crazy things. Do you know why those hallucinations were happening? Was it like residual effects from the overdose, or like your brain
Yeah.
coming back, or did the
What
doctor say?
what I figure is that what I figured out is that sodium, if sodium gets extremely high or something like that, sodium gets extremely high, you could hallucinate. I really don't know. I don't know. I guess it was just a little bit of everything, maybe even.
Yeah, yeah.
If I may interject here.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So when I got a text from Lori Ann, I wish I would have saved that text. I would have it framed now. But it said something like this, and it was, I've been in the hospital for 3 months on life support, a month and a half, and I'm going to die. She said something bad happens every May, and this was May. It was like, I don't know, May 3rd, May 5th, maybe. And she said, I'm going to die. And I said, "Where are you?" But this is what she told me was that a number kept coming across in her mind, and it was my telephone number.
Yeah.
And she kept saying it out loud. She was laying on her bed, and she just kept saying it. And Earl, the man he's precious man she's lived with for 20 something years, and said, "Whose number is that?" And she said, "It's Pam. I think it's Pam." And so I guess she texted this, but it said that she was going to die. And I said immediately, I said, "Can I come get you?" I said, "Can I take you to the baptism pool?" Because I was serving at my church, and they have a healing baptism pool, and people were coming from all over the world getting healed. So I knew. And so you want to take it from here, Lorianne?
Yeah, Cody had went to jail and I was getting high, and she had sent me that Psalms 88, which I printed out, and it's rough. It's rough, that Psalms 88. But my number was always 8, and so I guess that she read Psalms 88, and she told me to read it. So you want me to share a little bit of it?
Sure, yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
it's pretty rough. It says, "I'm as good as dead. I'm like a strong man with no streak left. They have left me among the dead. I'm like a corpse in the grave. I'm forgotten, cut off from your care. You have thrown me in the lowest pit, into the darkest depths." And then this is part got me. What was, "You have driven my friends away, making me repulsive to them."
Mm.
And then I was like, I think that's what I remember, is that part right there, is that just Earl, yeah, just he's put up for so much, so many years, and then it just all hit, and that's whenever I texted. Well, it was the next day. I said that number out loud, and then it was the next day was Mother's Day, and Mays are always horrible because of Mother's Day and my birthday and Cody's birthday was in there. So and just always bad things happened, but this time I got saved in May. I got clean and sober in May.
So I went and picked her up. I went and picked her up that day, took her to the baptism pool that night. She could
And
hardly
spent the
stand
night.
up. She was high, and she was just like her legs were just giving out. And so she went down in the baptism pool and came up, and I had given her this complete protocol. It's a health and wellness protocol along with scripture sheets, prayer sheets, faith sheets, I am sheets, all kinds of, sheets to read every day. And so she took all this. I said, just take baby steps. You don't have to do all this at one time. I said, but, go to the mailbox every day, walk to the mailbox, add another the next day, just whatever you can do, add to it, and we'll talk every day. Well, I didn't hear from her for 5 days. And I said, no, Lord, no, 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 no. She is not going back. The devil is not going to have her. So we just prayed. I got the prayer team praying, and we were not going to let the devil take her. He was not going to win her again. So then she contacted me and she says, I am so sorry. She says, I've been sleeping for 5 days. I said, great. Hallelujah. Great. She's been detoxing. The Lord's been ministering in that deep sleep.
Yes.
So, and she's never turned back. Never
Hallelujah.
gone back. She is
Yes.
my mentee coordinator. She does so much. She does everything that keeps this ministry grounded. She is it. She's the foundation here. Yeah.
When I did wake up, I had all the vitamins and stuff, and that list of things and the prayer sheets, and that's what I did for 3 months. I just sat on the back porch from the time I woke up, and I read about God, anything, everything. I just kept my mind. I wouldn't think. I didn't want to think, because if I thought, I felt like it would pull me. I didn't want
And
to
she
think.
talked
So
to me every day.
yeah,
That was a key.
yes,
You have to be in communication and have an accountability partner, have somebody that is walking alongside you through your journey, or you're
Yes.
alone. You feel like you're out there and you go back to the familiar. And that's what we had to change the mindset, that there is no option. There is no going back into the desert. There is no more desert. You're a new creation in Christ now. There is no turning back.
yeah, and that's what happened. And anytime, and it was rough. It was real rough the first couple of months, because my mind was just, oh, I was just so.
But she wanted to do something. She says, what can I do? I want to help the ministry. So that's when I started saying, well, why don't you come over? I'll come get you. You can come over. But Earl was bringing her. And then I had a vehicle, extra vehicle in the ministry. We've got vehicles and we loan them to people. And so I said, here, now you have a vehicle. You can come. So she started coming, and then she would just spend the night. She would spend the night and she would stay like 3, 4 nights.
I would come three times a week, or 3 nights a week. I would just stay there because I
Yep.
didn't want to drive back and forth. And then after that, we did that for a year. I realized that had I not done that, I would have maybe have floated back into the same thing, because I needed a new. And then plus I got to see her live, and it's like that. In the Bible it says somewhere that you watch how people live, and that way you can watch how Jesus lived. And that's
Yes.
what I did. I learned how to eat right and just live right and get up and do things and everything. So that was mandatory, I believe. And that's just so cool how it just happened like that. Because whenever the girl who was doing this job had left, and she had asked me to do it, and I was like, I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to ruin our friendship or anything. And
I gave her a little bit at a time. I gave her a little bit here and said, "Okay, do this. This is easy." And then she just caught on so fast. And then I said, "Okay, well let's add this to it." And then she got in and she just, I mean, just this, she was made for this. Let me tell you, all through her life she has been programmed. I mean, uh, that's not the right word, programmed, but she's been
Created for this purpose.
created.
whenever
Yes,
I would get
yes.
out of jail, I remember the last time I went to jail, I was in there, and I would pray for the girls. I would write down prayers and put them in my Bible. And they were getting out, and they would say, come over and say, "Hey, will you pray for me? I hear you get people out."
Oh,
So,
wow.
anyways, that was just funny. But and then whenever I got out, I had this whole little accordion folder, and I had printed out and was making my own stuff from sermons and stuff that I was sending to the girls that were in there. But I only did that for a short period of time before I fell back out again. But so the cool thing is that's exactly what I'm doing here. And I was trying to do that on my own. It's just wild how that works out.
Yes. I have a quote too that you told me when we first met. I just want to say it because I think it helps illustrate some of the transformation that has happened within you, Lori Ann. You said, I find myself working at my house and I'm just so thankful to be able to get up and function like any other human being would call a normal day. A normal day to me is a miracle. And I think that's just like such a beautiful way of saying like the progress and the pride that you have in how far you've been able to come. And I mean, this is the fun part, like talking about the
Yeah.
transformation that has happened within you. Tell us more about how you've changed, how your life has changed.
Well, like you say, I never in my whole life, I'm experiencing this at 44 years old, have gotten up without having drink or drugs of some sort to get me motivated, get to do things. Anyways, I'll just like you're saying, I will just be walking around doing normal stuff around my house. It's just wild how that I've never been able to do that before. So I'm doing things for the first time, and it's my battles are little right now, but they're getting bigger and bigger as I go along. So
And I'd like to also mention that, I mean, people look at people that are falling back in the church. They go through baptisms, and they go and they dedicate their lives to Christ. They go up front, and then you hear, oh, well, they fell back. And so many people are so judgmental in the church, and they say, oh, well, they never really accepted Christ, or they didn't really, they didn't. No, they did. Yes, they did. Okay. Because our spirit man is completely made whole, that doesn't mean our soul is not still in trauma. It still has those wounds from our emotions, our mind, all the things that have happened to us, and that's where we were stuck. There was an entanglement, and the enemy knows that. He sets up the first trauma, okay, and he builds upon that trauma, and then brings in the core beliefs, and we think we're not worthy. It's all the I am nots. I say it. He knots us up. Okay, the enemy tries to knot us up with I am not worthy. I am not loved. I am not significant. I don't matter. All these knots. And we have to counter those lies. First, we have to go back to the root of, just like with Lori Ann or anybody who, and myself, whom, I've had a lot of traumas. And we have to go back. It hurts to revisit that place. But until you revisit the place and you pull the wounded little girl out from under the bed, or that's hiding in the closet, and you let her know it's okay. You can come out now. It's safe. It's
Yes.
safe. You're okay. You're going to make it. You're really going to make it. And then we instill the I ams that Christ says. I am worthy. I am created in his image. I am uniquely you by design. That's where these I am sheets come in. And all we're doing is quoting what Jesus says about us.
Yes, and that transformation to Lori Ann that's happened within you, and getting to the root of those traumas and working through that and the pain that causes, but then ultimately beauty and coming out on the other side of that, just like other things that have happened in your life. I know that you've told me, like you said earlier, your children have come home, 2 of your 4, and God is working on the others. And I mean, that's so huge too. Like things are, you've got your job and you're working in this beautiful ministry. And you also said you have a car now too, right?
yeah, I just bought. Well, whenever my children were gone, taking or whatever you want to call it, it took my soul with them a little bit. And
Yeah.
that's what I'll spend all these years. It's just, and then now I'm slowly getting the pieces of my heart back, one by one. And then, but yeah, just me and Cody both. My daughter, who now she's sober, she got out of jail and came to the program with us. And not to mention the workbooks. The workbooks completely just they renew your mind.
Yeah.
They take you through all these things that she's talking about. And so Cody did that with me. We did it together. She stayed here for a year with me. We got that time back. We got that time to bond and
She
everything.
even stayed here at our house too.
It was amazing. Yes, she went with me every time. I wish she stayed 3 days a week with me over there. And and it was, and then she got herself together and is doing her favorite thing, her passion, which is grooming dogs. And she got her vehicle, and I got a vehicle on the same exact day. We didn't even know we were getting it the same day. We knew we were both looking for one, but it was just cool how it ended up on the same exact day.
Yes.
It was so
Yes.
neat. And then she comes, and then my grandbabies are back now because she wasn't able to see them. And now they come every other weekend. And Cody doesn't live here anymore, but she comes here to stay. And then so it's me and both my girls and then my grandbabies. And we all spend the weekend together. So it's just wonderful. And they were just here last weekend. So
I wish everyone listening could just see the smile and the joy on your face. And just, I mean, to hear you talk about how you literally got your life back from laying in the hospital, like almost, not alive, to coming back and having this fulfilling life of fulfilling work with Pamela and Life Changers Legacy, and your children coming back, the relationship restoration, getting to be with your grandbabies, just all of it is so beautiful.
yeah, this is a way that I always wanted to in my mind live. I always wanted it to be just like this, just like it is. And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to get there.
Yes, yes. Well, before we begin to wrap up, I want to ask you a few things, Lori Ann, about some just parting words or wisdom you'd like to leave with those listening today. And the first thing I want to ask you is, what do you want people to know about addiction?
People think that people, just like Pamela was saying, they just not trying hard enough or whatever. But it's a struggle. It's more of a struggle than you can know, because nobody wants to live like that. Nobody wants to be that miserable. Everybody wants to live and be happy. And just when you're in that, it's not that way. And you need more than just, a one-time event, like we were saying. So
They're in pain. They're just trying to cover up the pain. That's why
yeah.
it's so important to get to the root cause of the pain.
Yeah, there's
Right.
something bigger than that. It's bigger than just the addiction.
Band-Aid, yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think your story really helps illustrate and help us to begin to understand, for those who haven't had to struggle with addiction, like begin to understand that true bondage, and like how bad you wanted out and how hard you tried, and the difficulty that it ended up causing in your life, and ultimately the support system that you found to help you get out.
And don't give up on people.
Yeah.
Don't give up on people. I mean, you don't know what they're going through. Just because they go back does not mean God's hand is not on them.
Mm-hmm.
Intercede. Get on your face and
Exactly.
pray for them.
Pray.
Yeah, and invite them. Don't shun them away, because you're throwing them out there for the enemy to have them even more. You've got to make them inclusive and feel like they're loved, because they don't. They're not, basically. People don't want to be around them, and you can only give somebody so much. I won't even say grace, because God gives us grace after grace after grace, but enabling them is a whole. There's a balance. Okay, you can't enable them to continue using, but don't shun them away from your family as love. Give them the love. Just don't give them money to go get
Yes.
stuff, or take them to go get stuff just because you love them. There's a difference.
Yes.
So we give them truth of the word. Tell them who they are in Christ, not who the enemy has them entrapped in. We have to give them who God created them to be. Give them a foreshadowing of who they will be. You're created for more than this. You're better than this. Satan's just lying to you. You're over here. Let's pull you over here. I mean, if
Yes.
anybody who is listening, if you can touch one life, I mean, it brings tears to me to hear Lori Ann's story and the restoration, this beautiful restoration that God has done in her life, and to know that just the seeds, just using me, if it's the only thing I ever do in my life, I am so fulfilled.
Yeah.
Just to know her life is this now. It brings so much joy to my heart. I love her so much. She is my sister forever.
I love that. That is just beautiful.
That's another thing too I want to say, is to pray. Pray about everything. Prayer is so powerful. One time, Cody, my oldest, she started getting off track and found this guy he was using. She said she was a user or whatever, but I started freaking out. So instead of like freaking out to her, I just started praying. I started sending out prayer to Joyce Meyer and to all these different places. I call Pamela, and then Pamela gets with me. She prays, and the next day, I'm telling you, the next day that some guy came into Cody's work, a guy that and sent an email to her boss saying, "Oh, she's really nice looking. Maybe she'll call me or something." She ended up calling him, and she got away from the other guy, found her this awesome guy right
And
now.
we prayed that.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. I know that God listens to everybody's prayers, but every time I get this woman right here to pray with me, it happens immediately. It's wild. Prayer, prayer, prayer.
Yes. All right. And one last question, Lori Ann. What would you say to someone who's struggling with addiction right now, and how can you encourage them?
I don't know if call Pamela. There you go. No, it's just I think the deepest thing that you can't see, they can't see from out there and using is you got to have a mindset change. That is what it's all about. Your whole mindset. You got to do something to get your mindset just change, because you'll be the same exact people, just like the ones that are in prison. If they don't get their mindset changed while they're in there, then it's the exact same when they get out. And that's what I tell. I mean, that's what workbooks are for. And then we encourage them to, of course, read the Bible and get with God and be, that's what you need to do.
Have you endured difficulty in your life and are perhaps considering sharing your own story too? I'm convinced the world needs your story. And so I've created a brand new toolkit to help you get it out into the world. Introducing the Confident Storytellers Toolkit. This 24-page comprehensive toolkit will help you craft and share your personal story with confidence. It's perfect for anyone who's walked a difficult path in life and wants to turn their pain into purpose. I've packed this toolkit full of support and guidance to help you share your story with confidence. And you can see the full list of things included at stephaniemjacobs.com/shop, where you can click on the toolkit to learn more. It's only $37, and I've included 3 free bonuses to help you get the most out of your storytelling experience, one of which is an introductory coaching bonus for a limited time until October 6th. When you purchase the Confident Storytellers Toolkit, you'll gain instant access to book a free 30-minute one-on-one coaching call with me to help you put the finishing touches on your story. At only $37, my goal is to make this toolkit accessible to anyone. Go to stephaniemjacobs.com/shop to see all that's included. You've endured difficulty in your life, and it's time to confidently celebrate your redemption story. In doing so, you'll transform your pain into purpose and help others find the light they're seeking in their own stories too. Lovely, I hope you're as excited as I am for your story to get out into this world.
God gave me an acronym for change.
Oh, yes.
I mean, literally at 4 a.m. I had Googled acronyms for change, and they just didn't settle right. So I prayed. And that night, the Lord gave me choose habits around new growth every day.
I wrote that in here. I did that. The first one I said, I forget what the question was, but I said change, choosing habit. I think that was what it was. Changing habits around new growth every day, renewing of your mind, health and wellness, and most of all, a good support system have freed me from all the strongholds and bondages in my life, or some, a lot of them. How about that?
Yes.
So I want to say something real quick about the health and wellness component.
Yes.
Now, one of the reasons that a lot of people that are coming away from trying to stop drugs or alcohol is that there's an imbalance, and your endorphins, all the dopamines, you're so used to them flowing. Well, once you quit drugs, you go to eating, or you're trying to substitute something, right? Well, if you will take aminos, micros, proteins, and greens, it balances and releases the same amounts. And that's what I gave Lori Ann.
That's what happened. I remember that
That's
first
what I
week.
gave Lori Ann.
I
I said, you've got to take these every day. And it's a powder.
I still do.
Yes, we do every day.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it's just a healthy regimen.
Gave me the whole regimen.
Yeah. Well, Lori Ann, you mentioned too, having that strong support system. It was so critical. And Pamela, that's ultimately what you've provided in coming alongside Lori Ann in this journey, but also what you do with others, so many others. Tell us about your program with Life Changers Legacy and how people could learn more about that too.
Okay. Well, it all started, through my story. It's not what happens to you, but what you do with what happens to you. So I created these workbooks, the I See Me Free 4-phase curriculum. And it's basically, like Lori Ann said, you have to change your mindset. So we send these in to those in prison. We're in all the women's prisons in Georgia. We're in some other prisons in other states, but we're in a lot of the men's prisons. And there's 36, so we're not in all of those, but not yet. But so we provide a mentor to walk alongside them through email, video visit if you're on their visitation list, but phone calls, letters, cards, and you basically walk alongside them through the workbook course. It takes maybe an hour to 2 hours a week to mentor somebody from your home. It's so rewarding.
Help change their
And
mindset.
yes, it's a two-edged sword. Even the mentor receives healing because they go through this life-changing workbook as well. It's
It's anointed.
amazing. It's all just Holy Spirit developed, and it's for godly development, for character. We want Jesus character, right? So we've infused all the methodologies of the therapeutic interventions, meaning that we have trauma recovery empowerment model, critical thinking, stages of change, criminal thinking, emotional intelligence, just everything for the psychotherapy. But it's infused with the Word of God. He is who healed me. The Word is who healed me. So, I mean, the biblical principles that are infused in this workbook
So
is
good.
what brings the lasting change. And you can go to the website lifechangerslegacy.org, lifechangerslegacy.org, or you can call me 678-768-1978. I heard it was a great year.
There you
1978.
go. There you go. Well, Lori Ann, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the Love Light Stories podcast and sharing your story. It really is an intimate one. I don't take it for granted to be able to hear your story and that you trust me and our listeners to allow you to share that for the good of others. Like you said, your story has not been for vain, and it's just been really an honor and a beautiful testimony story. And Pamela, too, I mean, to have you on here and be able to make those connections back in the relationship and the support system and all of that. It's a really fun follow-up story and episode to your episode, Pamela, that aired earlier on this show. So I just thank you both so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us.
Thank you. That was
You're so
fun.
wonderful. Thank you.
There was so much we covered in this story together, and it was so heartfelt and real, wasn't it? It's one that I think helps us to begin to understand and empathize better with those struggling with addiction. She was so real and helped us to really see the true struggle of addiction. As she said, no one wants to live in misery. Those abusing substances are often just trying to cover up the pain. Opening your heart for the good of others to share what you've experienced so that others can learn from your story is vulnerable, yet filled with such purpose. It's a true privilege to hear her story, and I honor her courage and strength. She has worked so hard to transform her life into purpose and joy, and she's now experiencing the healing power of telling her story today, too. Lori Ann is a wonderful example of someone who's turned great pain into purpose, and she's just getting started. She did ask me to add something here at the end that she wishes she would have said, so I'm going to read it now. She says, I forgot to say that now my dad lives 5 miles away and he has been trying to change and be kinder and realizes the things that went wrong long ago with the way that he treated me. I also know that I don't think that he realized what he was doing at the time that he was doing it. It was just a reflection of how he was raised. Thank you for adding that, Lori Ann. Indeed, we're all broken in some way and often bring forward our own trauma into the next generation. I'm so glad you're on your way to what sounds like greater relationship restoration with your dad. And for anyone who would like to become a mentor and be that support system for someone coming out of prison, you'll find all the details at lifechangerslegacy.org. Did this episode touch your heart? If you loved today's story and have a relatable experience to share, encouraging words for our guests, or just want to share a comment, go to the show notes for this episode and send us what we like to call heart mail for a chance to have your note featured on an upcoming episode. If there's a large response to any particular story, we might just bring that guest back on the show to dive into your comments, or even have them join us as a guest in the Love Light Stories Facebook community. It's as easy as sending us a voice message or written note, both easily accessible in today's show notes. Simply go to stephaniemjacobs.com and click on the Stories tab. So, give it a try. Send us your heart mail. I just can't wait to hear what's on your heart. And hey, thank you so much for listening to this podcast and leaning into today's story. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcast so you don't ever miss an episode. And a great way you can support these conversations is to rate the show and leave a review. And if you have a friend who would like these stories, share it with them too. All of these things are the best way you can support this podcast. So thank you. And until next time, lovelies, keep radiating that love and light to everyone you meet.